Hello and welcome to this episode of Health and You. I am Sumi Sukanya Datta, and today's topic of discussion is the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India classifying all bottled, packaged, and mineral water as high risk food. To discuss this, we have two eminent experts, Piyush Mahapatro and Dr. Saurabh Arora. Mr. Mahapatro is Senior Program Coordinator with Toxic Links, and Dr. Arora is Food Safety and Testing Expert and is associated with Origa Research. Thank you so much, Dr. Arora and Mr. Mahapatro, for joining us in the call today. So we'll start by asking you, Dr. Arora, what is the significance of this move by FSSAI declaring bottled water as high-risk food? And going by our experience so far, are food items which are categorized in this class, are they subjected to more sort of quality control?
So we must, thank you for having me here. So we must understand a little bit of the background behind what is happening and why this has happened. So until recently, the packaged drinking water was under mandatory BIS licensing. So
Right.
anybody who was manufacturing, selling water had to mandatorily have a BIS license, and they had to comply with the regulations and testing and quality parameters, as well as plant inspections and approvals from BIS. So FSSAI recently came out and they said that that is no longer a mandatory requirement, and you can go ahead with just having an FSSAI license, and you can produce and sell your bottled water, be it natural mineral water or packaged drinking water. What this meant was that suddenly the requirements under BIS were no longer required. So BIS says you have to test your water every month for some parameters, daily for some parameters, 6 monthly. So all that went away, and being a critical commodity, and water everybody drinks, and it's so important for us. So they wanted to further re-strengthen the quality requirements. So they classified it now as a high risk. So what happens when a product is classified as a high risk is that you become liable for mandatory third party audits at least once every year. So the plant has to be audited by a third party approved agency, which will come and confirm your food safety regulation compliance and requirements. And if you don't get a, five-star rating, your rating is below 4, then you have to do it every 6 months. And if you fail the audit, it has to be done immediately again till you pass, and then only you can continue to sell the product.
Okay.
Earlier, other high risk products were like milk and milk products, so the dairy industry, and meat and meat products, where the spoilage and contamination is very easy. These were the high risk other products, for example. So now water has been brought into the same ambit, which I feel is very correct and much needed, because water can easily have microbial contamination, and there are so many waterborne diseases which are there. So it is a good step by FSSAI to bring it under the high risk category.
Yeah, Mr. Mahapatro, please help us understand what kind of contaminants are usually found in bottled water, particularly in the Indian context, because we keep hearing of some bottled water, packaged water getting busted, and these kind of rackets are always found. So, what is the general norm?
Yeah, if you'll see that we have a very stringent regulations in place by the BIS for drinking water. Like we have this IS 10500 2012. That's a very stringent regulation for drinking water. Like we have a parameters for all the chemicals, all the highly toxic chemicals have been included in that. We have a parameter for pesticides. We have a parameters for bacterial and other infectious issues. So also we have other parameters like radioactive substances. So it is very stringent under the BIS mandatory standards, and it's a mandate. And then there is also a separate standard for the packaging water under the BIS earlier, now have been shifted to FSSI. It was IS 3428 for packaged drinking water, and IS 145 for 3 for the mineral waters, mainly packaged mineral water. So there was a very stringent norms, as Dr. Arora has already pointed out, under the BIS. So there is possible contamination, that how it's very difficult, because it can be vary from places to places, situation to situation, from where the water is being drawn, how this is being treated, because this is a good step, as already been pointed out by Dr. Arora. So that will help. It's considered to be as a food, and the high risk food means water is a life. If there will be water contamination, if you see that many people can possibly died also because of water. Cholera is a outbreak is because of water contamination. So there is a multiple source of contamination is happening. So, but here this happened only for drinking water, for the packaged water, and for packaged drinking water. Because many of, if you see that this industry has grown tremendously since few years, and we have a huge packaging packaged drinking water, package mineral water coming, and the nook and corners industry started. So perhaps if there is contamination happening also in these waters, where sometimes even if you see that many land, small land, you will find it small RO plant, and they are selling this water. So perhaps this will help to at least streamlining, as well as have a proper check and balance in this the contaminations of this various type of, whether it is bacterial or whether it is a chemical contamination.
Yeah. Dr. Arora, can you please explain to us, because ultimately what these kind of things, developments, what do they mean for the average user? So how will this classification affect consumer choice, for instance? And also help us understand the importance of understanding labels, water sources, and certifications when it comes to packaged water.
So from the consumer perspective, it is a good step because taking away the BIS mandatory was kind of a dilution of the quality standards and requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So that dilution is now to some extent counteracted now that they have put it under high risk. So there is more regulation and audits and testing which will be required. So we should be able to still maintain the requirement there. So from a consumer perspective, it is a good step. But overall, I feel that the manufacturers will still continue to have the BIS recognition, though it is voluntary. But because the customer has come to accept it and expect it, when you pick up a bottle, the customer looks at it,
Okay.
whether the BIS mark is there or not, whether the product is, IS 14543 or not. So that expectation is there, at least in the aware consumer, that when you pick up a bottle water, if it is BIS, it is better. So now, along with FSSAI, you will find products which will not have the BIS mark. But I feel the consumer demand will keep the industry engaged, and they will continue to have the BIS mark there. And customers can continue to demand that. When you pick up the label, you can see the label. And I tell everybody, you must look for expiry dates. You must look for the FSSAI licenses to be there. You will find products which actually don't even have the license number or the logo still mentioned on it. And the BIS now will be a additional badge of certification which the products will have, not a mandatory one, to ensure the quality for the consumer. So
So
for the
very
consumer, it
important.
is a good protective step.
Yeah, it's a key message there to look for the BI certification, even though it's not mandatory now. It's always good to have that when you pick a bottle, yeah, right? So it's a very important message for our viewers. And coming to the health aspect of it, I know both of you are not really into health part of it, but if you could just help us understand a bit about the hidden aspects of bottled water, for instance, mineral content, pH levels, and how they impact our health and wellness overall. uh, Dr. Arora, would you like to answer that first, and then we'll go to Mr. Mahapatra?
Yes. So see, if you look at the legal requirements and the standards, so everybody has to meet that requirement. So ideally, all packaged drinking water should be of the same quality, should have the same kind of mineral content and the same pH. But now we do see products in the market where they are saying, it is alkaline pH, and they're calling it water-based drinks. They'll say that it is copper water. They'll call it silver
Yes.
water. They're fortifying it. So this is a
Mm-hmm.
choice and health choice which a consumer has to make, whether they feel that they're deficient and they need to look at a fortified source. But as a quality and as a normal aspect, all packaged drinking water, if it is meeting the standard, it should be of the same quality. But we must all be very aware. We typically prefer to pick up, any bottle drinking water when we are traveling, especially, and we assume
Mm.
that it is going to be safe. But that
So
is
in
not
some cases,
always
you don't
true.
have a choice also. For instance, when you're in a
Yeah,
train, you're just taking whatever
you
is
don't
offered
have a
to you.
choice.
Yes.
Very true. So, but wherever you have a choice, you can, look at the labels and authenticity of the packaging and the product, and then make a educated choice. And I might say something that people will not agree with, but in many cases, our tap water is actually equally good, and it's not that bad. If you have a RO system in place, even the RO plants are under mandatory BIS testing now. So
Mhm.
whatever water comes out of it, it has to meet almost the same standard which we're talking for packaged drinking water. So don't shy away from that. If it is filtered water and you feel confident, you can go with that also.
Yeah. Mr. Mahapatra, would you like to add to that?
See, all these standards, like BI standards or now FSSAI will take, these are basically health-based standards. All these water quality, has been stringent, or there is regulations in place to consider the human health and environment to consider, but most importantly, human health. So, what type of water will consume? It's a very highly rigorous process. They have gone into different standards by WHO, maybe other European countries when the standard was met. So there is no doubt about that what is the present standard. Maybe there is requirement, perhaps more standards gradually under the FSSA. There is a Food Toxins Regulation Act that can be also maybe placed in gradually. But the current standard is very stringent, and there is, we should not doubt about the standard. But the issue is that how the standards are being monitored. That's a very critical questions, that whether now it will come to the FSSI or maybe BIS, the monitoring need to be strengthened. So that is very critical message. We need to see if these changes are happening. This monitoring should be stringent. The people should not feel, that what type of water. They should feel confident. The consumers and water. As I said, that already you have a very stringent drinking water standards. These are basically standards for packaging water. Like we're talking about trend in railway stations, we have also water coming from the tap that was used for the drinking water. That should be supposed to be safe. I also sometimes used to have simple filter waters from Ganga waters, and I feel that I've safe, and I generally never go for RO. So it depends upon the consumer confidence, but it is also the duty of the state to protect this type of, they should do monitor. Even this tap water coming, everyone should not go for, need not be RO or maybe RO. So it depends, but it should be monitored when this state is government or the providing this drinking water to directly to the home also. So if there will be proper monitoring will happen, so I think consumer confidence will be there, and consumers will happy to having the tap water without having bottled water or maybe other type of water.
Yeah. So my next question, in fact, is related to what you're saying. In India, we all know that any law, for instance, is very good on paper, but the actual ground reality is quite different. It's not. It's so. It's also the case in case of bottled water, for instance, of food standards in general. So, what do you think about going by the experience that we have of seeing these cases? Are these standards always maintained? Because we keep hearing and reading about these instances when just any water has been picked up and bottled and sold to innocent people, and in some cases this has really turned into in some cases cases of food poisoning, water poisoning as well, killing people, making them or leading them to hospitals. So what are the checks and balances that we have in place, and also what do you think of overall monitoring of bottled packaged water in India? Dr. Arora, would you like to answer that?
Yes. Till now, you see, if you look at the history of the water standard and the entire rigorous testing and control which came in, so this was originated way back in early 2000s, when there was the case of the report of the pesticides which were detected in not only in water but also in certain carbonated beverages. So that is where this alarm came up that there are pesticides in our drinking water. And then FSSAI, sorry, at that time BIS framed this entire system which came into place for licensing the manufacturers of packaged drinking water, and also prescribing the testing frequency and monitoring all of that. So that actually turned into a very robust and elaborate system under which all the licensees were being monitored and tested regularly. And that actually improved the quality and availability also of the packaged drinking water. So not only the water but also the bottles, the packaging material came under mandatory testing. So no toxins from the packaging material, like any chemicals could not leach in. So even that was being tested and monitored. So obviously I feel that taking away all of that from mandatory does create a little bit of a risk. But FSSAI again is very active, and FSSAI has a large number of labs and private labs also, almost 270 labs under the FSSAI network now, So now the onus will come onto this entire network and on the food inspectors to ensure that sampling happens regularly and testing and compliance happens. But we must, as consumer, I will say, ultimate responsibility is on us. We must become very demanding, and we must
Demanding
not
and
let
aware,
things go.
aware of what is, yeah, yeah, what to look for when
When we
you.
see something wrong, when we find a bad product in the market, we should not let it go. We must exercise our right, file a complaint, use the FSSAI app where you can record the complaint and raise our voice. It is only when the consumer will speak, or agencies like Dr. Mahapatra who do such wonderful work on, going and investigating the risk and the safety issues. It is only when the consumer or the consumer organizations will be aware and they will raise their voice, then the standard will get maintained regularly. If we will let it go, if we will not raise our voice, it will gradually dilute and it can get into a bad situation.
Yeah, Mr. Mahapatra, to sir, you would like to say something to sum it up?
Yeah, I would like to say that it's a important move that has been taken place by FS by moving from BIX to FSSI. But I would like to say that there need a robust monitoring system in place to bring consumers into confidence. I should have confidence that what water I'm drinking from the railway stations, from the tap water, it's safe. That I we create need to create that of mindset among that the consumers, so that we are using lots of packaging water that can be create another problem, like how to dispose the plastics, how to discard this, recycle this. So this is a great challenge. So if we can have a get that drinking water with tap and very little impact, little demand from this packaged water, that will be very great things. But here now the whole development is about packaging water. I believe that it's a very important development, but at the same time, I would like to some of that the standards, SSI maybe need to keep updated on the global developments happening, because there are possible leachings are happening from the plastics and other things which can be strengthened perhaps, because maybe this I standard is not cut at all these aspects of this other leaching aspects from the packaging water. So that can be perhaps strengthened under the Food Safety Authority, and we have already very stringent food safety regulations, food toxics regulations act is there. So perhaps that can be synchronized with these waters, and that will be perhaps be more helpful for the consumers.
Yeah, let's hope that FSSAI really pulls its socks and does what it has to do. With that, we come to the end of this discussion. It was indeed very insightful and useful to hear both of you. I hope our viewers benefit from it. Thank you so much, Dr. Arora and Mr. Mahapatro, for taking time out for this. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.